Hi guys, my name's Vanessa Smedley and I'm a painter. Well, today we are going to do something very different in the fact that I am going to do an art book review for you, which I've never done on this channel before yet. And then I'm going to do a demo of the type of stuff that's in the art book on toned paper, which I have very little experience with doing, so it could be a little bit of an adventure. And we are going to draw this absolutely adorable squirrel that my husband and I encountered at our local park while feeding the squirrels. And does he not just look like he would say, "Excuse me, kind sir, but could I trouble you for an unsalted peanut?" At least that's what I imagine that he would say. So anyways, let's do this. All right, so here is the book in question. This is The Artist's Guide to Sketching by James Gurney and Thomas Kinkade. And it was written in the 80s, but went out of print and has recently come back into print. And I found out about it about a month ago and went and rushed to get it from one of the big box bookstores. And I don't typically just read art books cover to cover. I usually just take little bits and pieces that apply to what I'm working on at any given time. But this book was so enthralling and so interesting that I read it cover to cover over a series of a couple weeks. So I just felt like I really needed to share it with all of you artists out there. So James Gurney is, he's the author of Dinotopia, and he does all of his own illustrations for all of his own books. He has, a website. He has his own YouTube channel, which I watch his videos all the time. And I consider him to be like a master painter as far as like realism goes. Just amazing. And then Thomas Kinkade, of course. If you're around in the 90s, you know Thomas Kinkade, like especially if you went to shopping malls. He had his own like art shops in shopping malls. And he is known as the painter of light. And he had a very kind of idealistic style. And a lot of Christian bookstores would carry his stuff. And it was a lot of very idealistic, like English cottages and bridges and Christmas scenes and things like that. A lot of his critics kind of dismissed it as kitsch, but he definitely had a way with atmosphere that was, very unique to himself. But this book has absolutely nothing to do with any of that style whatsoever. At this time in his life, he was a gritty urban sketcher, so it's very interesting to see him in that kind of a light. But basically, like, he and James Gurney knew each other in art school. And they decided they were going to ditch school. I'm not sure if they quit or not, or if they just did this for a period of months. But then they decided that they would hop on trains in the boxcars and hitch rides across America and just get off at different stops and like paint what they saw and sketch and paint what they saw. So just crazy, crazy shenanigans like 20-year-olds like doing that kind of thing. And it's just very, very interesting and completely and utterly chock full of just useful information that would help you to be able to see better when you're out like painting from life. Because I've noticed that painting from life is not just a picnic. It is kind of difficult to translate what you see into a 2D arena. Like, I'm used to looking at photographs and painting from those, and the photograph kind of like flattens everything out for you and makes it easier. If you're looking at life, life doesn't do that for you. You have to learn how to translate a 3D object into a 2D subject, and this book is absolutely just chock full of that kind of thing, and it is so interesting. The different types of people that they met, the different kind of landscapes that they painted, the different kinds of machinery that were around them that they sketched. They just sketched everything. And even like subjects that move, like animals or like people or whatever, they would sit there and sketch people as they're moving, which I still don't know exactly how you do that. It gives some tips in it, but like I have yet to translate that into actual like using it, but it's just absolutely fascinating. So I would definitely recommend this book, even just for a good read, but especially if you're wanting to learn how to sketch and paint from life. So I'm going to show you some pictures from it and different things like that, and then I'm going to do a demonstration on toned paper, because there were quite a few examples of that in this book, and that kind of piqued my interest because I've never really done much of that. So let's get started. All right, so first up, of course, they have the story of what they did with all of the train jumping and that kind of thing, which I still think is pretty crazy, but anyway. And then they kind of just start breaking stuff down, like the way that they operate. And one of the things that they go over is materials, and this is one of the parts that they updated because, you know, that was back in the 80s and things have changed, but they go through all of the different supplies that they used and different things that you know that you can use to achieve the type of stuff that they did. It's pretty cool. They go through achieving accuracy in drawing and some cheats for perspective if you're talking about doing buildings. They go for portraying movement. And here's some of the toned paper type of things that I'm talking about here. You know, different movements for animals, capturing motion, you know, scribble drawing in order to get the poses of people when you're drawing them. Just all kinds of stuff like that, like using a smudge to start out if you're watching like a fight or, you know, some kind of sport. It's really, really cool. And then you come down here and of course, like they've got a whole section on using your imagination in drawings. You know, exaggerating things. I mean, it's very, very interesting because a lot of, you know, James's stuff involves fantasy. And here's some more toned paper examples of where they did some anthropomorphic things with some cars. And, you know, and drawing people. You've got more and more toned paper. But, you know, just getting different personalities, different people. It's really just a very, very cool book all the way around, and I could not recommend it more. I don't want to give any more stuff away about that, but I really just think that it's definitely well worth your time. All right, so here's the sketchbook that we're using for this. It is toned tan, and this is Hahnemuhle. I'm sure I'm butchering that, but anyway. And it is 95-pound paper, which is a little thinner than I like, but they don't make a 100% cotton version of toned for the watercolor sketchbooks. So, I mean, it works all right so far, and I'm not using a ton of water because I've been using the water-soluble graphite, and I probably would only use either that or pen and ink or maybe gouache, which doesn't require as much water as watercolor for the most part. All right, so I have my squirrel drawn on the toned paper beforehand. I just used a regular number 2 pencil. And then what I'm going to be using is these Faber Castel Graphite Aquarelle water-soluble graphite pencils. And this one is an HB and 2B, 4B, 6B, and 8B. Progressively darker that direction. If you've not used those kind before, surely you have, but maybe not. And this is for the white highlights that we're going to use. I actually have made a little experiment out of this. This is a water brush, just a cheap water brush. Niji, whatever brand that is. That's the first time I've used them. I usually use Pentel. But I have diluted some Dr. P.H. Martin's Bleed Proof White with a lot of water and just loaded it right into this pen. And so far it's worked pretty nicely. I'm not sure for long term if that would clog up this like nib down here to where it wouldn't come out, because that stuff is really thick. But so far it's worked pretty well. It's just a little experiment that I had. But I've only had it done, like I've only been using it for about a week. So beyond that, I don't know. I'm starting out on the darker areas of this, and I'm using the HB pencil. I'm going to fill it in fairly lightly to start out with because I don't want it to go too dark too quick. If you go too dark, then you don't have anywhere to go. So I'm going with all of this gray area, the darker kind of gray area. I'm just going to fill that in just with your normal old pencil strokes. I'm also going to just go around the lighter areas for now and leave them, white. I started to say white, but it's actually tan, of course. On the areas of his body that are lighter, and they actually are tan, I'm making my strokes fewer and farther between so you can see more of that tan coming through. And that is one of the purported advantages of using a toned paper, is that you can not have to fill in the middle tones as much. The very darkest areas are around his eyes and around his mouth. So I'm taking the 8B, which is the darkest of all of them, and I'm filling all of those areas in for the very darkest darks. So I've been wanting to call this guy a red squirrel because he has that tan color on his belly, but he's not a red squirrel. He is an eastern fox squirrel, which we have an awful lot of those in Oklahoma. And he or she is really just the most adorable thing, and he really did come right up to the edge of our picnic blanket and stand there and wait patiently for his peanut. At this particular park that we go to, all of the squirrels do that because so many people feed them. I have had some of them take the peanut right out of my hands to the point where I could feel their little claws. And I have had as many as 20 squirrels at once trying to get fed, which was just a little bit disconcerting, to be honest with you. I'm not all about being mobbed by a group of squirrels when I run out of peanuts. As we finish up drawing all of this grass, it is time to start activating all of this color. So I'm using a damp brush, and I am just running it across all of this and activating it. And that is what makes it kind of have a little bit of a watercolor feel to it. Now I added way too much water on the top of his head, so you might want to watch your water usage because it started making cauliflowers and I was not super happy with that. So I think I may have to fix that later once this all dries. These pencils work a lot like the Graphitint pencils, which I've already done a video on. If you'd like to see that, click the link above. As I'm continuing to activate this, I'm making sure and wiping off my brush pretty frequently just to make sure that I'm not moving around too much of that pigment or graphite. I just don't want it to get muddy. We're done with that, and now we're just going to let the entire thing dry completely. I think there are some areas that could be darkened up, especially in the shadow underneath his little paws. So I'm going ahead and taking a number 2B, doing that, and just adding in some more details. And really, I'm just adding back in some of the sketchy nature of this because I like the watercolor aspect of these aquarelle pencils, but I also like the sketchy look because pencil, that's kind of the point of it. So I'm adding some of that back in, and then I'm not actually going to activate any of that any further because, especially since this guy's real furry, I think that adds to the effect here. Next, I am taking my water brush that has been loaded up with the thinned bleed-proof white, and I am adding in all of the little highlights and details, the lighter side of his fur where there's more sunlight hitting, just adding in some highlights to all of this to give it a little bit more depth and definition. And of course I have to add in these little white clovers. I feel like that just adds a little bit of charm to this whole scene. As if he's not charming enough, but anyway. And here it is, all dried and signed, and the experience of painting on toned paper, it's kind of interesting. You'd think it would be similar to being on black paper, but it's not since it's the middle tone. It's just very interesting, and I look forward to getting more experience doing it. And there you have it, a little book recommendation with a little demo to go with it. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, share, all of that stuff, because that's how this channel gets to grow. Thanks for watching. I'll see you again next time.